Avengers?
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy. So, the most important line we've heard in the show Secret Invasion has been totally overlooked.
And what happens if the Avengers return?
This line confirms that the Avengers split up following Avengers Endgame. And this line is huge for many reasons. One, I really don't understand why they would break up, but I'm going to talk about that in a second. But two, it also gives us a roadmap for where the MCU is going from here on out, and it tells us exactly what kind of Avengers team we can expect in the future. So this line means that following the events of Infinity War, when every single superhero stood arm in arm to save the universe, that a few of these heroes didn't even bother to say, hey guys, we should keep doing this. Now, clearly the MCU has planned this for a reason, so I'm going to talk about how and why the Avengers will reassemble during Phase 5, but I'm also going to tell you why I think that's a big mistake, and I think the reason Phase 4 was the weakest phase is because we needed an Avengers movie. So in the most recent episode of Secret Invasion, spoiler alert for episode 4 by the way, alien terrorists attack the President of the United States. Now this would ordinarily be a job for the Avengers, you know, the powerful people who can fight the battles that we never could. In the old days, Cap would have shown up in a Quinjet, or Tony would have dispatched the Iron Legion from space. But now the Tony drones have all been seized and appropriated by damage control. The superheroes no longer have a contingency in place for disastrous events like this. And I think that the heroes' decision to not reform the Avengers was ultimately selfish, and I'm going to prove that to you. I mean, these superheroes had their reasons, but as Fury would say, they're stupid-ass reasons. The heroes have acted selfishly and they hung Nick Fury out to dry. Hey, by the way, man, I'm going to have lunch. You want some?
Person, are you shoving cornmeal into your mouth like Winnie the Pooh, only if Winnie the Pooh ate cornmeal instead of honey?
Yeah, I know there's a way to turn cornmeal into food, I just don't know what it is. I mean, there has to be a better way. Now, back to what I was saying. Now, the show has given us an excuse for why Fury didn't call the superheroes for help.
We get them in a fight with the Skrulls, and next thing you know, they find themselves duplicated and turned into terrorists.
I actually think that there is another reason he didn't call them, though, a deeper, more personal reason that I'm going to talk about later on. But first of all, I have to point out that all of this is indirectly adapted from the comics. So I'm going to explain that adaptation because it will inform what's going to happen next in the MCU. So back in the 1980s, the Scarlet Witch and Vision had twin sons, conceived with magic and complicated otherworldly stuff that I'm not going to go into right now. But then, in an issue of the West Coast Avengers, it was revealed that Wanda actually just imagined her sons into existence, and they were pieces of Mephisto too. Around this time, Vision's memory was wiped, and the kids were absorbed back into Mephisto. Long story. The point is that afterwards, Agatha Harkness places a spell on Wanda to make her forget her children. This is because Wanda has the power to rewrite reality, and her grief makes her very unstable. And so for years, the Avengers lied to Wanda, never mentioning that she had kids because she couldn't be trusted with that knowledge. But then the Wasp kind of let this information slip, and the Scarlet Witch began to subconsciously sabotage the Avengers, killing the Jack of Hearts, summoning Ultron bots to fight the team, destroying Avengers Mansion. And then Doctor Strange showed up and revealed that Wanda doesn't have mutant powers. She's a very powerful sorceress who uses chaos magic.
Wait, all this sounds very familiar.
Yes, it was all loosely adapted into WandaVision. Wanda mourns Vision, creates a spell to make her forget, has twin sons, loses twin sons, and Vision is resurrected with no memory. In both the comics and the movies, the Avengers failed Wanda, and it caused huge problems. In the MCU, eventually Wanda's grief and proximity to the Darkhold drove her insane in the movie Multiverse of Madness.
Oh my god, person. That smells delicious. What are you eating?
This is a black pepper and sage pork chop served with smoked cheddar Brussels sprouts and creamy broccoli. It's delicious too.
I told you not to hire a personal chef at work. It is far too expensive and costly for our tiny budget.
Oh, no. This meal is very affordable and it's not takeout. Plus, I didn't make it either. This is a meal from Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. This meal is delicious and nutritious. The thing is, guys, it's summertime. We're making plans. It's too hot to cook, but Factor makes it easy to eat a healthy, balanced diet. So now I skip the grocery store with a Factor meal that is delivered straight to my front door, always fresh and never frozen. The meals are ready in just 2 minutes and are only around 550 calories per serving. Plus, they offer more than 34 chef-prepared meals. Everything from keto, calorie smart to vegan, and there's even a gourmet plus selection. So I've been using Factor for, several months now, and I have noticed such a big difference in my life. There's days when like a new show episode or a trailer drops and I just forget to eat, or like I'll run into the kitchen and grab a bag of cornmeal or something. But now Factor meals help me to get through my day. It's also much more affordable and healthier than takeout food. Plus, you know, it's summertime. I want to be out doing things, not slaving over a hot stove in hot weather. So, you have to give Factor a try. Head to Factor75.com and use my promo code ScreenCrush50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring this video. But back to the comics. See, following this event, the Avengers decided that they should disassemble the team for personal reasons. They failed their friend, and that caused chaos and destruction, so the world was, by that logic, better off without the Avengers. Now after this, Wanda rewrote reality to create a perfect world where mutants ruled the planet and she has like a large family, which is a lot like Wanda creating the sitcom reality in WandaVision. So this event was called Avengers Disassembled. Now after that crossover, we saw a couple new Avengers teams. One of them was called the New Avengers, with Luke Cage, Wolverine, Spider-Man, and also there were the Young Avengers, who I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the video. The point is, the reason the Avengers stayed broken apart is because they failed to help their friend. It was personal. They personally believed that they could no longer protect the world, and that the world would be better off without the Avengers. So this meant that new people had to resurrect the team. But this idea that the Avengers broke up for the good of the world does not work with where the characters end up after Avengers Endgame. Following Captain America's Civil War, the Avengers already broke up for personal reasons.
Like a band? Like the Beatles?
Now that movie established a clear reason the Avengers could not work together. Tony and Steve had strong personal differences on how the Avengers should operate. I mean, they got personal.
That shield doesn't belong to you. My father made that shield.
Now this is sort of similar to the Avengers Disassembled comic book, where the Avengers split up for personal reasons. And of course, that breakup in the MCU allowed Thanos to win, forcing the team to come together in Avengers Endgame. In Endgame, Thanos devastated the Avengers, destroyed their headquarters, and after that movie, most of the team went their separate ways, which doesn't really make sense in context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let me run through the list of what happened to all these heroes post-Avengers Endgame. Carol had basically no interest in ever protecting the Earth, and she went back into space to help not find the Skrulls a home. She never really joined the Avengers, she just kind of freelanced with them.
I'm so sorry, I have to deal with this. You can get my number from Bruce. It was so nice to meet you.
Yeah, I don't have her number.
Rocket and Nebula were proxy Avengers while the Guardians were dusted, so when their family came back, they went into space to formalize the Guardians and make them into an official galactic protectorate. Thor, like he always does, goes off into space on a journey of self-discovery, which we saw in the most disappointing movie of Phase 4.
I want to feel shitty about something, and I think that's you.
Now that movie did end with him adopting a potential young Avenger and teasing Hercules, so I'm going to talk about in just a bit, because Hercules would have been a great reason for a new roster of Avengers to have formed at the end of Phase 4.
I made a mistake.
Now, obviously, a few of the Endgame heroes died. Natasha, Tony, Vision.
But Vision came back.
Yes, and I'll talk about how he could be in the new team in just a bit. Clint retired to make up for lost time with his wife and kids, and his TV show is basically about passing the torch on to a new generation. Scott wanted the same thing as Clint, to make up for lost time with his daughter. And Hope was never really an Avenger. She just wanted to run her father's company, where frankly she does a lot more good than she would have liked busting bad guys' heads. Steve Rogers also retired, preferring to go back in time for a dance that completely disrupted the space-time continuum. I guess you can say that Pepper Potts retired too, but as far as we know, she only wore that rescue armor one time that we know of. Tony even says,
Mom never wears anything I wear.
Oh wait, what about Sam and Bucky? They could have been the new Avengers.
well, of course we saw that in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Bucky may have been cured from his Hydra brainwashing, but he's still making amends for it. In the comics, after Steve is killed, Bucky doesn't initially want to become Captain America because he feels like he's unworthy. The same thing happens in the MCU, where he wants to cleanse himself of his past. And Sam had his own soul searching to do, so he gets back to what's familiar, working for the government and then fixing a boat. And you know what? The same is true of Rhodey. He lost his best friend, so he goes back into government service where he thinks he can do the most good. And like several heroes just kind of have their own lives. Peter Parker still needs to finish high school. He wants to go on dates, not save the world. Doctor Strange is already protecting the world along with all the other sorcerers. And Wong is Sorcerer Supreme, so he wouldn't just up and join another team. After all, he's got Sopranos episodes to watch.
What about Wanda?
Well, Wanda is the last person who would join a reformed Avengers. Remember, Tony had her arrested and then chased her down for years. Her only attachment was to Vision, and then this happened. And then, like, from her perspective, she wakes up moments later and the rest of the team just left her to grieve on her own. And then we've got T'Challa and Valkyrie, both of whom had countries to run. Hell, Fury even ran through this list in Far From Home.
What about Thor?
Off-world.
Okay, Doctor Strange.
Unavailable.
Now, look, even though there were reasons for these team members to go off and do their own thing, there were even more compelling reasons for them to stay together. Infinity War and Endgame showed the reason they needed to remain the Avengers, to have some kind of organization to deal with these large-scale threats. Now, I have to think that 2 or 3 of these heroes would have said, hey, we gotta keep this going. For instance, Bruce Banner. He's never been like a team leader, but we do see him taking a leadership role in Phase 4. He welcomes Shang-Chi to the hero life.
Stay safe. Welcome to the circus.
And when his cousin gets powers, he's extremely keen to teach her how to be a hero.
I know you didn't ask for this, but whether you like it or not, you're now a superhero. And who's gonna protect the world if it isn't people like us?
But honestly, I think that War Machine would have been the first person to try to reform the team. He already stepped away from working with the government.
That's a court-martial.
And he was an active Avenger during the blip, and he would have kept the team going to honor his friend Tony's memory. But I guess he's a Skrull, so that would explain why he didn't want the team to reform.
But then why did the Avengers not reform?
Well, Doug, maybe the heroes thought that the team didn't need to reform. Like, after the first Avengers movie, the team splits up, and Fury just knows that they're going to come back together.
Because we'll need them to.
Maybe all these heroes at the end of Endgame would have this idea, like, yeah, you know, we're all good at our own thing, so when the time comes, we can protect the Earth. After all, they kind of made it look easy in Avengers Endgame. So Rhodey put his faith in government, Sam kept doing military work, you get the idea. Now, the lack of an Avengers team creates a lot of storytelling opportunities, but I think the team needed a better reason, a personal reason to stay apart.
Well, wait, how did no Avengers make for a better story?
Well, dude, think about it. I mean, the lack of the Avengers creates a huge power vacuum in this universe. Quentin Beck took advantage of that power vacuum in Far From Home. In fact, in that movie, Faux Fury was going to a world security meeting at Europol, and he was planning to bring Quentin Beck along, maybe to create some kind of international Avengers. And Val is creating her own team of super soldiers and assassins to protect America's global interests.
If the US was the only country in the world with vibranium,
I actually dream about that.
Now, this power vacuum is going to be a key part of Phase 5. We have the Thunderbolts movie, where the government's shady super team will hopefully recruit villains like Zemo to be in their rank. And I'm betting that Captain America Brave New World will show the government way overreaching, maybe using the leader to try to create global stability in the hero's absence. And there's even rumors that that movie's going to end with Sam going off to recruit a new Avengers team. But we're not going to see a new Avengers movie until 2025 with Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. And I think that delaying this new Avengers team has severely weakened Phase 4.
What do you mean?
Alright, well look, Phase 1 through 3 culminated in big team-up films. The events in all those phases all kind of fed into this big team-up movie. Captain America introduces us to the Tesseract, Thor introduces us to Loki, they all meet in the Avengers. S.H.I.E.L.D. fell in Winter Soldier, so the Avengers became the New World Peacekeeping Force in Age of Ultron, which they royally screwed up, you get the idea. So I'm seeing a few common complaints about Phase 4. One, that the quality is dropped because they're doing too much. Another complaint is that they're doing too much. And you can tell the CGI budget has been wearing the one ring too long.
I feel thin, sort of stretched, like butter scraped over too much bread.
But mostly, a lot of people have complained that the MCU feels disconnected now. This universe thrives because of its characters and the way those characters connected. The idea that Captain America could pop up in a Thor movie, or the giddy joy of seeing scenes like this.
I am Groot!
I am Steve Rogers.
But in Phase 4, it seemed like the characters are all siloed apart from some end-credit scenes. Now, Kevin Feige did say that they weren't going to have the phases culminate in Avengers movies because they were doing so many individual team-up films, but are they? A few movies have had team-ups, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, Thor and the Guardians very briefly, and eventually like Carol, Monica, and Kamala are going to meet up, but all those team-ups are very few and far between.
Please, sir, I want some more?
Phase 4 of the MCU, when you compare it to some other franchises, has had some incredible high points. WandaVision, Loki, the two Spider-Man movies, Wakanda Forever. But MCU stories are starting to feel like they're not necessary to see.
What do you mean by that?
Well, look, the reason the MCU movies always did so well is because, well, you felt like you had to see them to know the bigger story. Well, like Captain Marvel, right? We needed to see that movie to know how the Avengers could defeat Thanos because of the tease at the end of Infinity War. But now, without these big team-up movies, that feeling's kind of fizzled out. It's hard to get hyped about 9 episodes of She-Hulk, even when a few guest stars keep popping up.
No, I've had
Goldschlagers?
vodka and yak milk. Never again.
I think that Phase 4 needed to culminate in some kind of team-up film, whether it's an Avengers film or not, just some kind of event that would have brought different people together. Something to show us that it's all still connected. Some story that gave us the thrill of seeing heroes from Disney Plus on the big screen finally together.
But who would be on that team? You just told us why nobody is on the team anymore.
Aw, dude, there is still a massive roster of heroes, even if you remove the Thunderbolts and Young Avengers, especially after Phase 4. I mean, in the Eternals, you introduced like 12 new heroes. Then you have Shang-Chi, She-Hulk, War Machine, Captain America, Moon Knight, Captain Marvel, Photon, Shuri, Namor. You could even throw in Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, though I think those characters work better when they're like loners who only show up for like a rare team-up. Like, after all, Spider-Man is off reinventing his life away from the other heroes, and Strange is out in the multiverse with Clea setting up the Kang Dynasty. But by far, the character set up in Phase 4 that I'm most excited for is Hercules, played by Brett Goldstein. In that post-credits scene, we see Zeus promising to send Hercules to Earth to show the people of Earth that gods are still mightier than the superheroes.
They will fear us again when Thor Odinson falls from the sky. Do you understand me, Hercules?
So imagine this was the premise for the team-up movie. Hercules comes to Earth, picks a fight with some heroes. A lot of heroes have to get together to beat him up, and eventually they recruit him to fight whoever the real villain is of the movie. And like I said, this did not have to be like an Avengers movie. It could have been like Captain America Civil War, where all the characters are present and together, but they're not necessarily part of a team-up movie. They're just in service of like an individual character. Just something, you know, some kind of gathering to tide us over until the Kang Dynasty. I mean, everything's going to be building up towards Secret Wars, which is like this big multiversal crossover that's going to have different variants from different realities fighting each other. But like, that movie's already been delayed twice. And in order for us to appreciate the big multiversal crossover with different versions of Wolverine fighting different versions of Spider-Man, we need a smaller crossover first. Something to connect all of these heroes into a shared universe. Hell, maybe the team-up movie could end with the Avengers being a disorganized mess and basically saying, we're never going to work together again.
I'm never doing that ever again.
Or what about New Vision? Would he be on the team?
Well, White Vision does end WandaVision with new memories, and he leaves to go make sense of them. Now, there are rumors this is going to lead into a show called Vision Quest, which could set up the Young Avengers. So in the Young Avengers comic, the team formed after the main Avengers were disassembled. Vision was dead then, but an aspect of his programming reawakened. This was part of a contingency plan to reform the Avengers if they ever split apart. So the Young Avengers were all pulled from this algorithm. They were young people with some kind of ties to the original team. There's also rumors that Kamala Khan is going to set up the Young Avengers after the events of the Marvels, but this could also happen in the Vision Quest series. And of course, Young Avenger potential members include Kamala Khan, Cassie Lang, Kate Bishop, Patriot, maybe Wiccan and Speed if they come back in the Agatha show, and I guess Scar.
This is my son, Scar.
So I mean, you can see how the Avengers being disassembled is very similar to the comics, and will have similar results. We'll have a team of Dark Avengers, it's the Thunderbolts, a Young Avengers, and a New Avengers team eventually being formed. The problem is, I just don't think the MCU has done a good job of setting up this disassembled team. It took 4 years to get confirmation that there was no longer an Avengers team, when all it would have really taken was like one line at the end of the Endgame epilogue with somebody being like, well, yeah, there's no one left to form the Avengers, or I can't do it, or something like that. Instead, they just kind of left us hanging. So let's bring all this back around to Secret Invasion. Fury was there for the Avengers when they needed him in Age of Ultron. When the team was broken, he showed up to give them a pep talk.
Well, this is good times, boss, but I was kind of hoping when I saw you, you'd have more than that.
I do. I have you.
And the heroes rewarded his trust and guidance with infighting, breaking up, and ultimate failure. Fury put all of his faith in the heroes, and in Infinity War, they let him down. Everybody keeps saying Fury isn't the same since the blip, and this is why. He put all his chips on the heroes, and they failed, which means that they failed the world and the universe. And now, they've abandoned Fury. The heroes have let Fury go off and defend the Earth alone with S.W.O.R.D. Carol isn't doing anything to help the Skrulls. In fact, the Skrulls' resentment toward her was foreshadowed all the way back in 2019 Spider-Man Far From Home, when Talos, disguised as Nick Fury, says,
Captain Marvel.
Don't invoke her name.
Every Avenger that Fury has recruited has died or retired, and at this point, he's maybe thinking that he should have been the one who got to retire. Maybe the Avengers should have repaid their debt to Fury. I think that what we're really seeing in this series is that Fury no longer trusts the Avengers, and he's grappling with that loss of faith. So in that respect, it does work that we don't have a formal Avengers team. It also means we don't have superheroes flying into every situation to save the day, which makes for better storytelling. But I still think we needed some kind of universe-uniting team-up movie, even if it was just characters temporarily sharing the same movie who ultimately went their separate ways. Maybe I'm just excited for a new Avengers movie. I'm used to waiting 3 years in between Avengers films, but now it'll have been 6 years between Kang Dynasty and Endgame. That is a really long wait, and frankly, I don't know if the MCU can hold out that long. And just a reminder, everyone, to take the hassle out of eating healthy, give Factor a try. Head to Factor75.com and use my promo code ScreenCrush50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. But I want to hear from all of you about Secret Invasion. What did you think of the episode? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.